Alright, welcome back everybody, it's DestinysJesus here. So I've got a really important video for you guys who want to perform in this season in solos, and especially how to prepare for the solo FNCS coming up, as well as the DreamHack tournaments coming up, as well as the Cash Cups. There's been a ton of new tourneys announced. I'm really excited to get into coaching them. So I thought I'd just make a video that would make it really clear as to what you guys need to do to prepare for these events. So many players, I just feel like they're just spinning their tracks, they're not going any of their progress, they're not playing properly, they're not warming up properly, they're not being efficient in their training. And that's the whole point of Fortnite, right? Is you're trying to train to get better at what you're doing and eventually get results. So I'm going to run you guys through a couple things. The main thing I want to get across in this video is that being good and being successful is all based around habit. You can't just be doing different random things every day, then you're never going to acclimatize to anything. You're just going to do random things, get random progress spikes. You're never going to make that steady progress towards achieving your goals. You need to get in the habit of doing things. Three main things that we need to get in the habit of doing are your warm-up habits, your play habits, and your after-play habits. I'm going to cover all these in different sections in this video, and hopefully this should clear up a bunch of things that you guys need to start doing in your gameplay when you're playing, as well as when you're not playing, to recover and then make sure you're playing at the full potential so you can start performing in these tourneys. Alright, the first thing I'm going to be talking about is your warm-up habits. Your warm-up habits and what you're actually doing in your warm-up dictate how your whole play session is going to be. It doesn't matter if it's 4 hours or 12 hours, that whole session is going to be done based upon the fact of how good you feel after your warm-up. The biggest thing I can recommend, as somebody who's been coaching for a long time, I'm pretty much done about 5 years of just working with people, and now about 1 year of working with just Fortnite coaching. Biggest thing I can recommend to you if you're watching this video, one thing you can take away is to change up your warm-up habits. Whatever you're doing at the moment, whether that's free building or you're doing an aim map, like a Skaavok routine, or you're doing a Kovacs routine, whatever you're doing, change it up and you'll notice a drastic difference in A, the amount of progress you make because it's completely new stimulus, everything like that, as well as B, how your mental is going into your gameplay. Let's say I do a free build map. I'm just going to go into a BHG build fight. I'm going to free build for a little bit, go to max height about 10 times over. I'm always going to be running through the same motions. I'm going to feel like I've already done this before. Maybe, of course, I'm warming up. I'm never really pushing myself further and getting that confidence before I play my main bulk, which should be like scrims or arena, depending on your level of play. I've got 3 maps I'm going to recommend to you. First one I'm going to get into is this Boxfight Duels. Obviously, it's a bit of an ad, it's my map, but I really recommend this map. Basically, for any level of players, I've had extremely good results from the guys I work with at pro level, as well as all the way down to like a newer level, even on console and stuff like that. The next map I'd recommend is Raiders Boxfight Practice Map V2. I'd recommend doing this whole map is really useful and a lot of different things that you can do, but these 3 sections in particular, here, here, and here, where you're basically doing a bunch of edit throughs, but I wouldn't choose instead of freeboarding if you're just doing freeboarding and warm up normally. My issue with freeboarding is a lot of players just go at the same pace they've always been going. They just go through the motions, they just warm up their 90s and their retakes. Obviously a good warm up, but you're never pushing yourself, right? You're actually trying to improve. So what I'd recommend on here is basically just to go full piece control and everything. Make sure you got Ryan P on each of the targets. Targets obviously add a little extra level of difficulty. Alright, the last map I'd recommend to change up your warm-up habits is basically swapping over to a different kind of aim trainer. If you're not familiar with the Skaavok Aim Training map that me and Don Wozy made together, I'd highly recommend you check it out. It doesn't matter if you're doing a Kovacs routine or you're not aim training at all, swapping up and doing something different will completely change it. A big part of progress is mental. If you're just doing the same thing over and over and every single day, your brain is going to get bored of it, your progress is going to slow, you can't improve on something that you don't enjoy doing or it's not fresh for you personally. So I'd highly recommend you check out this map. I'm going to be releasing a charged shotgun version where you can basically just do anything on the map with a charged shotgun and improve that way. But this map on its own is really useful for practicing at AR aim. There's a bunch of scenarios that replicate the whirlpools as well as helicopters and how they move and stuff like that, as well as the shockwaves and crash pads as well. Alright, that's the final part for this early bit of the video, is warm-up habits. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below, but we'll get onto the actual play habits just now. This is the biggest part of the video that I want you guys to take away and learn from, is basically how to maximize the efficiency of your play habits to A, have the best practice that's realistic for the tournament, as well as just make sure you're not pissing about and wasting time doing random things like, let's say, waiting for a custom code to come out or waiting for second general to end so you can actually fight and do all sorts, right? In my opinion, I've worked with probably hundreds of people. I've worked with people make their first earnings. I've made people who have done really well and qualified through open events who have never done it before. The best practice possible is A, solo arena, and B, if there's a ladder on, like let's say a late ladder, that can be also useful to practice skills. If you are playing sub-zonal customs, any kind of customs where you're not allowed to fight after a certain amount of players, just leave the Discord, stop subscribing to people on Twitch. It is a complete waste of money and time, just because it's not as efficient as possible. It doesn't prepare you for how solo tournaments are actually going to be. The last solo event in the EU had over 500,000 people playing in it, and those 500,000 people are literally complete randoms, right? They're all just random people playing. They're not the people playing zonal customs, right? They're doing anything they want. They're W King. They're doing all sorts. They're fighting in random orders. There's no rules in an actual tournament, right? The best way to practice is just play solo arena. And the most efficient way, in my opinion, that I've started to get people to do is how you're not supposed to go to your arena. Let's say you play for 8 hours. Obviously, you don't just sit down and play 8 hours for arena. You'll go insane. Sit down, play in 2-3 hour breaks. Let's say you have like 8 hours to play, right? So I'm going to start at 3 p.m. I'm going to play till 6 p.m. I'm going to record all my games, first of all. From my POV, or use replays or something like that. I'm going to get in a game. I'm going to try hard and actually run my spot. I'm going to run through how I'd actually want to play in a tournament, the playstyle that I want to try finding that would work for myself. And that's basically how I'd go about it, right? You want to split up your practice. You don't want to just play for like 7 hours straight, 10 hours straight. I know it's just a bit ridiculous, but some players actually do that because they're not really actually getting the efficiency there. Queue in, get into your game, play for 3 hours straight, get as many games in, because that's basically how normal tournament settings are. That's how solo FNCS is going to work. That's how DreamHack is going to work for the opens. The reason I recommend doing this 3 hour kind of breaking up your play sessions, A, is just have a little bit of a mental break during while you're actually playing. You're not playing for an extremely long time. And B, is the fact that it will prepare you really well for the actual how the cash cups work, how the making round 1 of a cash cup, how the dream hacks work, how the solo FNCS open rounds are going to work, and everything like that. Don't just sit down and play for an extremely long time. Play for that 3 hour break. It will allow your mind to focus and actually try hard on what you're doing, as well as you can just run through your normal tournament drop. What I'm going to recommend, this is going to come into the second part, is making sure you have your replays on, or just recording your gameplay in general, and also just doing your normal spot, your normal route that you want to do in a tournament, making sure you're efficient, not going to die of spawn like I am, and kind of playing from there. The biggest part of solos in my eyes, and all the players I've worked with, is your confidence. If you're not confident enough in your own ability, either at your off spawn or in mid-game fights. I'm talking mid-game fights where you're at a disadvantage, you're playing defensively, let's say you get beamed by a controller player, or you're playing offensively and you're trying to take active mid-game fights. Being confident is the biggest part of that, and building up that confidence in through just repetition of in-game fights. Just repeating, let's say I'm going to drop sweaty 1,000 times over, and I'm going to fight and try getting as many engagements as possible. I'm just going to practice my loop path over and over. Get really confident on that path, then get confident at fighting people on that path, and then leading into fights mid-game, knowing the players rotate from, all different scenarios like that. Being confident at your off-spawn fight is really, really important. Knowing what the angles that people can come from, knowing how to play your defensive box fights. Shut this kid real quick. Quick shit on. Being confident in those off-spawn fights is really, really important, as that will translate over to FNCSs. Nothing is worse than when you need to go into your final game of a cash cup or an event and you need that pop-off game and you're nervous, right? Nerves are the biggest thing. It's basically the opposite of confidence, right? If you're not confident in your own ability at your off-spawn fights, at your mid-game fights, playing all those different angles, all those different scenarios 1,000 times over from solo arena, you're never going to get good. So many players, they just play those zonal customs, they just play those customs where there's like no fighting when there's 80 players left, until surge, little things like that, and that completely devastates their confidence when they actually have to go into an in-game. Little defensive box fight here, control player. The first part of your after-play habits is something that's really useful to get in the habit of, is volleying. A lot of players have said that they don't volley, it's not really useful for them. And while let's say one player who says that volleying isn't useful for them, there's about 10 players who have volleyed and got a lot of progress from it. And it's honestly the best way to improve if you're already at that point where your fighting is good, your drop spot is good, everything like that, and you just need to learn the game more. Biggest thing I'd recommend that you do as soon as you die, obviously you just don't be down in the arena game, is going into your replay. Going into your most recent replay and just watching it back. I don't need to watch your own perspective. Skip to where you died and watch the perspective of the guy who killed you. Obviously, there's replay regions. I'm going to skip to about here. It's a replay region. I can see where this guy came from, exactly where he rotated to. So he hit this whirlpool. He probably looted this whole area up here. It's probably something to be aware of when I'm rotating. Landed on a hotel roof and then saw me in the zip lines, but a stupid rotate, and got a lot of damage on me to begin the fight. From now, I'm just going to review and see my own fighting mistakes. I now know that it's a possibility that somebody can rotate up from this whirlpool up this way. That's something to look out for in tournaments. If I hear a glide, I should probably just hug close to a building and box up, or just wait for them to leave. Now that I'm fighting, I can break down what I did in this fight. I should have had this 2x1. I should have this wall here already built. He came in straight away and SMG'd me when I should have had that wall there to begin with. And the second part of this fight that I messed up, obviously I was just commenting over it, was that I let him try to come up for high. I should have boxed him myself, or I should have tried to maintain high, and I popped a pepper instead of going for an extra mini. Extra mini, I think it wouldn't be that much of a difference, but probably if I'd got this shot off here and then got out the box, shouldn't have let him get all those pieces on me, and he killed me pretty simply. But the main thing to be aware of is the fact that he came from that whirlpool area, and that's really useful for learning a new drop spot. VODing your own games, especially solo arena, and watching the perspective of the guy who killed you is so useful and can make your time really efficient while playing. This is the last part of this video, and it's very underrated that people don't talk about. It's making sure that you're on a consistent schedule that works for you and will help you perform your best when you're actually trying to play the game. I'm talking a consistent sleep schedule and a consistent play schedule that works. So let's say your consistent sleep schedule, always be making sure you're waking up at the same time, you're going to bed at the same time, you're not feeling like really awake at night because you haven't really done anything during the day. So making sure you're always exercising for 30 minutes a day, you're always actually doing something active when you wake up to make sure you're feeling good. You're not sitting at a computer chair for 10 hours long thing. That's why I like doing the 3-hour breaks, where you play for 3 hours, then maybe you have like a 20-30 minute break, come back on, warm up again, then get back into your play session again. You can fit this in, let's say you're doing a late night ladder, you can have a break before you play the ladder, then you come in and play it, but making sure you're always getting off at the same time. You don't want to be in that habit where you play for like a random time each day and then you get off at a random time. Changing your warm-up habits to do something new and fresh for yourself, changing your play habits, you're playing arena as much as possible, you're also being efficient in your practice when you're playing arena for those 3-hour break things. And then your after play habits, including your videos, making sure you're exercising, you're eating good, and also you've got a consistent sleep schedule that works for you. If you like this content, please make sure to leave a thumbs up. I hope this video is useful for you guys, and hope you guys can have a lot of success in the solo FNCSs and the dream hacks and the solo cash cups and all sorts that are coming out. It's going to be a good year of Fortnite, and hope everybody can learn some new things in this video, so make sure to subscribe.